Hi, and welcome to Journey Forward with Jory Rose, where you will gain insights, tools, and inspiration to get unstuck and live your best life. Jory is a licensed marriage and family therapist with a passion for helping people cultivate awareness and authenticity so they can show up fully in all aspects of their life. And now, here's Jory.
Hi, and welcome back to Journey Forward with Jory Rose. I'm really looking forward to my conversation today with Jayne Williams, who we met a couple months ago and instantly connected on a variety of different areas. But I brought her on today so she can share with you her expertise and teach us all some really amazing things and how we can make this amazing positive shifts in our life. So Jayne, welcome, and I'm so happy to talk with you.
It's so great to be with you. I miss you already, and it was just a few months ago that we were together. So thank you so much for having me on. And it was just, yes, like you said, we just bonded the moment we met.
Yes.
I was like, I feel like I've known you forever. And don't you love that?
I love
you
that.
know, I feel like that's what empowering women breed. They totally when you are in their presence, you just feel lifted. That shift starts to happen inside of you. And that's the idea of building community. And I love that so much. And women who just empower, help others to rise up in their lives, help to create that shift, because we as women see that in other women.
Yes.
And then we recognize that in ourselves.
Isn't it so true?
It's so true. And it's such an amazing feeling.
So fulfilling. Like, to be in that energy is the space I want to be in all the time.
It's like addictive. Like, that's the best kind of drug, isn't it? That you're in that piece, or the feeling of that you're in that moment of this amazing shift. And all of a sudden, your life just becomes limitless.
Yes.
And
it's so true.
I love that feeling. I've been there. I have such clarity around that. And through the challenges that we walk in our life, by owning that, by shedding that, and then letting it flow, that's when we truly start to feel that clarity and that limitless.
It's so true. And that's the whole mind-body connection of it all, right? So Jayne, tell our listeners, what do you do? How do you help women? And I mean, there's like the whole, like, what are my credentials? But then there's like, what do I really do? Right?
Ooh.
So what do you do and what do you really do?
Okay. So what do I do is I'm a mindset and gut health coach. I am also a grad student in clinical nutrition. I have worked for years now, really focusing on gut health with nutrition clients. But over the past couple of years, I really started to dive into business coaching, seeing all of these women come out of nutrition.
It's all connected, right?
It's all connected. Yes. And I think the biggest shift for me, so that's what I do. But the biggest shift for me, for what I really do, happened not only with my own story, but when I truly started to see a number of clients and them all coming in, and I'm seeing a pattern, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to know, what do I eat? How do I change my life? Just tell me what to do. And I knew it had nothing to do with food. I knew that it was all about mindset, which you know so well. I knew that we had to get our mindset right. We had to create that shift in our lives, make that space to create that shift, and to shed what we need to shed, own it, and then be able to move forward. And that's when you're able to start making those changes, nutrition-wise, lifestyle-wise, whatever it is, growing your business, being able to authentically walk in who you are. So I knew that was not just a passion of mine. It's what I knew to be true. It's more than believing, it's knowing.
Yes. And then it's doing. And so I'm going to use myself as an example for you to help me. This is very selfish of me at the moment to share, but I know it all. And I say that with so much self-compassion. I know the mindset. I think I know the nutrition, and yet I still get stuck. So if I am an example of your every client, right? And I am someone who says, Jayne, I really believe I have good mindset because I actually teach this as well. So I've got the tools. So why am I still stuck? Like, I imagine an example like that as a question you get all the time. So what would you say to someone who says, I think I'm doing it all right, so why aren't I feeling better? Or why am I still so damn bloated all the time? Or why don't I feel good in my own skin? Or I think I'm eating the right things and yet I'm not feeling better. So when people think they know what they're doing, what's the first step that you take?
Well, Jory, I'm going to speak to you personally.
Okay, everyone else just tune out. Jayne's talking to me now.
Since we're having a girlfriend conversation and everyone can put their name in the blank space, it happens with all of us, right? It's when we get our goals and outcomes confused, and we have such a flood of information that comes in constantly that instead of doing, we get caught up in the information and then we do nothing. And I think that is the biggest thing. So a goal is something that you want to happen. Like, for example, I'll use nutrition. I want to lose weight. I meant outcome. So the outcome is that you want to lose weight. But now we talk about the goals, and those are the daily action steps. And I mean, we're intelligent, all of us. I mean, everybody that comes to see me, they know, they focus in on their body. They listen, they read all of the latest news. I mean, so many women do this. But when it comes to ourselves and implementing, we get so confused. And a lot of it has to do with messaging, but it also has to do with goals and outcomes. Yeah. So we know what we want the outcome to be, but then we get confused in the action steps, in those day-to-day goals. And so we need to break it down. And we need to make sure, again, that we're making space for that. We have to calendar block. We can't expect to go from A to Z in one day. We have to know that there is a process, and there's a process for a reason. Right? That's right. Play the long game. New habits, building new habits into your daily routine takes 60 days or more. We have to remember that. One new habit takes up to 60 days. So even if we think, okay, I got this, and then something derails us, we know we can get right back on because we have the tools to be able to do that. So I think it's really important that we break it down. And I think that's a mindset component as well, as you know, with the mindfulness piece. It's keeping it simple and making sure we're slowly building, because it's all of those little pieces that add up to a completely new lifestyle, or a lifestyle that we love, that we can own and feel good in, a body that's thriving instead of just surviving. That's where we repair. That's where we reverse. That's where we prevent. So I really feel as though it's the goals and outcomes that are just very confusing. We have all the information. We just need to break it down.
Well, and it can put us into analysis paralysis, right? Where we know so much that it prevents us from taking action. And one of the things, I like to bring in the spiritual woo-woo piece, in which, I'm huge on intention setting, and I love manifestation, and I have manifested quite a bit. But people don't see the difference from the intention to the manifestation, the action that I took in the in-between time. And people just think it's the intention and then you manifest. Well, yeah, but there's also a lot of work in the middle there.
Yes, it's so true.
Do you find that some people think, well, I know all this, and so now I should just be able to incorporate it without actually the doing part, right?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. Or they want the quick fix, Again, I've been feeling like this for so long, or I feel like, these are all the things I want to do, and I try to do them, but then nothing happens. And why? So again, it's getting caught in the gap and not taking action. It's just being stuck there. So I think that's why our role as a coach, as a leader, to be able to help people to move out of that gap, to show women, and everyone is different, right? Everyone has something different going on in their life. So it's so important to get to know the person, to teach them, give them the tools that they need to be intuitive and to move out of that gap. And a lot of times too, I don't know if you find this in your practice, but a lot of times I find there's a shedding issue going on. Like, for example, we're holding on to something that's not serving us. If it's people, if it's a thing, if it's
an expectation.
Right, exactly. So I find a lot of times just helping someone, giving them the tools, empowering them to shed that piece changes everything. It's like a light switch, right?
You know, I love that you said that. One of my favorite places, I'm actually going again next September. John and I are leading a couples retreat at this retreat center in Costa Rica called Pura Vida. And their wellness center is incredible. Like their wellness, they're not just massage therapists. They're, you know, they are really intuitive healers to the deepest sense. And I was there a couple months ago and I had been feeling a lot of bloating in my body. And I went with the intention to cleanse a little bit. Like what am I holding on to that I know isn't about food, but is energy or emotions? What am I holding on to that's literally making me feel bloated in my body? And one of the intuitive healers I was doing a session with, which, you know, was like a massage, she said to me, why do you do the work that you do? As a therapist, as a mindfulness and meditation teacher, why do you do that work? And I said, well, because I know change is possible. Because I know I've been able to change. And so therefore, if I can do it, anyone can do it because I know it's possible. And what she said was so fascinating. She goes, you need to let go of the expectation that other people are going to do it as well. And that's what you're holding on to in your body, in your gut, is these expectations on your clients to change. And I thought, wow, that's really powerful. And what could shift if I let go of my own attachment to their outcome? How might I hold the energy different in my body? So I think all these things you're saying, like there's the mindset, there's the intuitive part, there's the shedding.
It is.
And
it's
where
so
we're
true.
in our own way. So with the nutrition piece, because the mindset, you know, clearly the goals and the outcomes, those are the stories we're telling ourselves, right?
Right.
So the nutrition piece and the gut health, I don't know too much about gut health. So like, what are some of the main things of someone who doesn't know, would they really say, okay, these are the top things you need to know about gut health?
Well, I always like to start with number one, there's a reason why your gut is located in the center of your body. And the gut is really the epicenter for your entire body. 70% of our immune system is in our gut. 90% of serotonin and dopamine are actually made in your gut. Wow. It is an inflammatory response center. That's where leaky gut happens. That's where hormones are controlled through. There is a connection between your gut and your brain. There's neurotransmitters.
The second brain, right?
Right, exactly. There's neurotransmitters. We actually have 3 brains, believe it or not. We have our brain, our gut, and our heart, because the heart and the brain also have neurotransmitters that connect the two. So it really is the epicenter of your entire body. So healing your gut, lowering your inflammatory response, lowering your cortisol levels, all of those things that put you either in a parasympathetic or a sympathetic.
Right, the cortisol being that stress hormone that gets released from constantly being in the fight or flight, that stress response.
Yes. So all of us live with a mild sense of inflammation in our body. It's just something that, you know, we all have as human beings.
Right.
So it now comes in the question, is it acute or is it chronic? Acute being like, you know, you cut something on your body is a natural healer, is an intuitive healer. And so your body will naturally heal that. We need that type of inflammatory response. But then when it becomes a chronic situation where our inflammation is continually rising in our bodies, and we find this unfortunately a lot as we age, right? Because we have not, both on the mindfulness side, we have not shed what we needed to shed, just like you shared with the energy that you were holding for others. We do a lot of that, or with our own stuff. It becomes a chronic issue. And then off of chronic issues comes disease, comes autoimmune issues where, you know, our immune system is attacking itself. So it is getting the gut right, healing the gut. And I have learned so much about the microbiome, and it's such an emerging science. But it is such an ancient science as much as it is an emerging science. Ayurvedic medicine, which is 5,000 years old, taught us so much about how important it is to put in adaptogens and superfoods and what that will do for our gut.
And that's different for each person's body, right?
It truly is. So this idea of intuitive eating, which I love to teach because it is such a personalized approach to holistic nutrition, to holistic lifestyle, is learning to tap into your body, what feels good, what works, what doesn't, and being able to put in what is needed to be able to thrive in your life. Mm-hmm. So kind of helping people tune in, teaching them about whole foods, about how whole foods can heal in many different respects, just overall inflammatory response in your body. But teaching them is amazing to me. I'll give you an example.
Okay.
I had a client come to me about 6 months ago. She came in, she has had raging inflammation going on in her body, just very achy joints, achy legs. She's a runner. She eats really healthy. She takes care of herself. She goes for acupuncture. She's one of those that does all the things, all the right things, right? And she's like, I'm frustrated. Why is this happening to me? I've been to 15 doctors who can't solve my problem. Why do I have so much inflammation?
Yeah.
Why? I want to solve this. I want to get to the bottom of it. Can you help me? So of course, I said, well, okay, let's talk. Let's sit down. Let's talk about all the pieces in your life. What's going on? Let's talk about not just your health history, but your family health history. So we started to dive in, and she shared with me that about 20 years prior to that, she had breast implants put in. And she had them removed about 15 years later. So it was now about 5 years before she saw me. And one of them had been leaking. So what she didn't recognize was that she never really cleared the inflammation going on in her body, and that it was silicone that had been leaking. And she knew she had somewhat of an inflammatory response, but had never really done anything to really clear that inflammatory response. And it sounds like
put the pieces together of the puzzle.
Which I love. I love that. So we actually started to do an intuitive approach to eating because she hadn't really done that. She ate the right things, but not necessarily the right things for her body. We really lowered her toxic load. Her inflammatory response all of a sudden started to go down. She started to, her joints started to repair, and she started to feel really good in her skin again. I remember she called me crying, saying she went to her first spin class in about 10 years, and she loved spin. She used to teach spin. So it's that kind of work that being intuitive.
It sounds amazing. How long do you normally find when you're working with someone on when they're shifting their diet like that? How long until they start to see somewhat of a result? Because I imagine some people want the quick fix, right? But so when can they, is there a generalization of when you can start, when the body is starting to actually make that shift that might show up in a physical way that is more tangible for them to say, okay, I know this actually is working for me?
That's a good question. So number one, it depends on the individual and how committed they are to making the change, right? So I can make suggestions all day long. I can, help them, empower them to go and do what they need to do, but they have to be willing to do the work, right? That's in our court. But someone who is mindful, someone who is fully engaged in the process, people start to feel better in 30 days or less. Mm-hmm. Sometimes
is 30 days that kind of magic marker?
For me, 3 months is the magic marker. I like to work with clients for 3 months because then I know not only are we making the shift, but we're creating healthy habits. Right. It is something that is long-term. You are no longer on a roller coaster. You've created the shift in your life now. So it's much easier, and you feel like you have the tools that you need to be able to move forward and to make adjustments because you feel good about the tools that you have.
Right.
So I would say, but when people start feeling better, I mean, it can be as little as 2 to 3 weeks, depending upon what we're dealing with.
And it also seems interesting to me too, because I hear this idea of like the 80-20 rule with food.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll eat clean 80% of the time, and then every now and then I'll say, sure, I'll have that piece of pizza, or, you know, something that's not within the regimen that they want to do to maintain the long-term health. So how do you feel about that? Because I'm someone who, I used to struggle with my weight. When I was in high school, I'm not going to give a number because for some people that might not mean anything, but I will say this, from my highest to my lowest weight, I have lost over 70 pounds.
Wow. And good for you.
Thank you. And the weight that I got to was not a healthy weight for me to maintain, but I maintained it for a little bit of time. And even after having babies, I was still at a pretty low weight. And as I get older, I'm noticing, you know, I'm probably about 10 pounds more than where I would have liked to have been since my lowest weight. And part of me is okay with that. Part of me is like stuck in judgment of, why don't my old jeans fit? Okay, well, I'm over 40 now. When I was 32, I should give myself some compassion. However, you know, from having such a dramatic weight loss, I did that mostly through Weight Watchers. And I knew if I deprived myself of something, then it was harder. But if I'm okay if I had just like, you know, a small bite of a piece of chocolate every now and then versus saying no more chocolate, for example. So how do you feel about, like, is it all or nothing? Does that, you know, is a little bit of something going to ruin all the success? Is it kind of like, dirty up the floor of an otherwise clean kitchen floor?
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely not. If you have a healthy diet, there's no reason why. I mean, life is about enjoyment.
It's about balance, right?
I love food. I am such a massive foodie. I love food, but I like healthy, good fuel that makes me feel good, that fuels my body the way that my body needs to be fueled, so that I know that I am getting the nutrients that I need. Does that mean I don't like chocolate? That I don't like chocolate cake? No, absolutely I do. But I now, with the way that I've suffered in my life with processed food and making bad choices, I know I have to decide, do I want to suffer? Do I want to eat this and suffer? Or do I want to eat something that is healthier but still enjoyable, right? If I want whatever it is, and not suffer as much. So that's a conscious choice that I need to make. And I feel,
and that's going to be different for each person, right?
It is. And I feel really confident, and I teach my clients that too, and I feel very confident that I have the tools to be able to make those choices. And whatever choice I make, that's no problem. I mean, if I choose that I want the chocolate cake, like that is really something I want, great. Right. And you know what? I'm going to enjoy every bite, right? And then the next day, I know my routine. I'll get back on my routine.
And we also know how powerful the mind is, that if I sit there and eat the chocolate cake and I tell myself this is bad for me, this is bad for me, this is bad for me, I actually believe that I have a more negative effect on our body than if we say, you know what, I am going to love and savor and slow down and really taste each bite of this. And I shift my relationship to what I'm otherwise labeling as bad, I think it has a different effect on us. And, you know, there's
I got
science
news for
to
you.
back out that mindset.
I got news for you. If you actually take that approach and you are enjoying your food, and this is not just for chocolate cake, this is for any food that you're eating. If you slow down, when you sit down, if you have a mindful practice where you are in gratitude, you are breathing, you are looking at your plate, you are thankful for what is in front of you.
Smelling,
you are chewing. That's right. If you chew your food, truly enjoying it, you're also going to eat less. Why? Because you are being mindful about it. You are creating this beautiful ceremony around food, so to speak, that you're really enjoying what you're eating. And you don't need as much. I think that's one of the big things.
Have you ever done a mindful eating exercise with the raisin?
With the what? I'm sorry?
With the raisin.
Not with a raisin.
Okay,
no,
so
I have
this
not.
is this. I'm going to dedicate a whole podcast episode to doing it, so I won't give it all away. So
Okay.
I'll let you know when to tune into that episode. But it's a traditional mindful eating practice in which you eat one raisin by going through all your sensory experiences with the one raisin. And when I guide it, it takes between 10 and 15 minutes to eat one raisin. Like this is like ridiculously slow. However, two things usually come out of the process, or it's not an experiment, through the experience, right? One is people always say, oh my God, that was the best raisin I ever had. And my response is, no, that wasn't the best raisin you ever had. It was simply the only one you paid attention to.
Right.
And
so true.
I take that parallel as teaching mindfulness in all aspects of our life, of what else in your life would shift if you paid greater attention. The second thing people always say is, wow, one raisin is so satisfying. And they would never eat just one raisin. They're like, who would eat one raisin at a time? Like, right, we're going to take a handful and pop it in our mouth. And the awareness of I can be satiated with the flavor, the taste. I don't need a huge portion of something. So again, what might else shift in your relationship to your food if you were eating less of it? Because I think it's a mindset thing of, I think I need more.
Right.
And so therefore I'll eat more.
Right. That's so true. And you know what? I mean, it's been proven time and time again that our nation is not obese because of food. It's obese because of the amount of food that we consume.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. And when you are mindful around what you are eating and how you are eating and the chew composition, just like you said, the mindfulness piece, enjoying and savoring, everything changes.
Yeah.
It truly does. And like you said, you build in that mindset component because we're actually tuning in. And that is like the first piece for intuitive mindset and for eating.
Yeah.
And that is so incredibly important. I love that.
So what are some of the foods that you work with your clients around, that no matter what your body composition is or which Ayurvedic, is going to be more, which, I don't know what they call, what are the 4 different Ayurvedics? What is that?
Oh, your doshas?
Yeah, your doshas. I knew the word was on the tip of my tongue. So regardless of what your dosha is, are there some universal foods that are always going to benefit gut health? Like, I know we can see lists of things here and there, but in your experience, truly, what are some of those? If you're going to do nothing else but get this out of this podcast episode, is to bring these food in to help your gut health. What would those be?
Okay, everybody, get your pen and paper ready.
I'm getting my favorite
part. Well, number 1, herbs and spices. Our body, first of all, herbs and spices have very little calories, no fat. I mean, not that I don't love fat. We can talk about that a whole different episode.
Right.
But
okay, you're coming back on then. We're talking about fat.
All right. I love it. Let's do it. So I really love herbs and spices. And our body, in Ayurvedic medicine, we teach our body needs a combination every single day of sweet, savory, and bitter. So I love flavor combinations of great spices. Turmeric, that's awesome for immunity. It's great for gut health. I cooked with
turmeric last night for the first time ever.
Oh, that's awesome. I
made chicken shawarma. Yes.
Oh, that's
I made a whole Mediterranean meal. I was pretty excited.
I love turmeric. I have it almost every night. And just remember, you can do powder. I do it actually. I make what I call liquid gold shots. I use the root, turmeric root, ginger root, lemon, and maybe a little cayenne in there sometimes. Wow. Sometimes I do a little raw honey, whatever it is I'm feeling. And if there's, allergies going on or colds, potential things in the air. So I love all of that. Nice. But I love to cook with turmeric. It's great to put on roasted vegetables, but not just turmeric. I do a spice blend, and that's where the bitter, the savory, and the sweet all come in. So
what counts as the bitter ones?
Oh goodness. Well, lemon peel would be bitter. There's cardamom, which is considered more of a bitter, astringent flavor. Okay. And for savory, you've got sage and you've got oregano. Oregano is so good. Oregano actually has more antioxidants than blueberries.
Wow.
How about that? So yes, oregano is awesome on food. Oregano oil, I'm sure you've heard of oregano oil.
That's I have great some of the doTERRA. Yes.
Okay. Excellent to use when there's things swirling around, viruses and different things. So, or before travel, during travel. So that's
so herbs and spices. What would be another one?
Herbs and spices. Another one is fermented foods. So things like kombucha, which is a fermented drink, sauerkraut, kimchi, things like that, that you can actually ferment. And what fermentation does is it breeds good bacteria. So we need that bacteria in our gut to be able to digest, to be able to lower inflammation. We need the pre and the probiotics. The prebiotics are fiber that actually feed the good gut bacteria. And just like, tigers and dogs don't eat the same food, probiotics, good bacteria don't eat the same food. So they need different types of prebiotics or fiber to feed on to be able to colonize. And we're supposed to have over 1,000 different strains in our gut of good bacteria. I call that the good army. So, but unfortunately, a lot of times we just don't because of toxin exposure, environmental exposure, antibiotics, processed food. I mean, you name it, the things that we're putting in our body that just aren't serving us. Yeah. So it's really important to inoculate with those types of things.
Okay, so I love that. Fermented. Anything else you would?
Fermented food. Oh, yes. I also love, for good gut health, cinnamon. That's another spice. We didn't talk about that, but I love cinnamon. I can't get enough of cinnamon. It's so important. It's great for immunity. It's a metabolism booster. It's so good for your gut. So that's important. Fiber.
When I was a kid, I used to pretty much drink cinnamon out of the bottle. Oh, I love cinnamon. In fact, that was also in my chicken shawarma recipe last night with cinnamon.
Oh, I love cinnamon. It's just so good for you. I put it in my drinks in the morning. I put it in my smoothies. Yeah. I mean, I find a reason to put it in something. Fiber is another thing for your gut. Your gut needs fiber. So leafy greens, fruits and vegetables. And I personally subscribe to blanched, roasted, sauteed. We tend to do better, less bloating, if we do a little bit of a roasted or sauteed, blanched style vegetable or fruit. And not fruit so much, but vegetables really, and root vegetables. And as far as greens go, if you can do raw greens, that's amazing. If you can't, you can always blanch them or lightly saute them.
Or put them in your smoothie. You can't taste the difference.
You can put them in your smoothie. Spinach has no flavor in a smoothie.
I keep my bag of spinach and kale in the freezer. And it's just with all of my smoothie ingredients in the freezer. So it's just one of the things I pull out. Don't even know it's in there, but it's there.
Yes. And then hydration. Hydration is so incredibly important for your gut. We don't drink enough water. Generally, we just don't get enough water in every single day. And I like to tell people that, we've got this 8 glasses a day that, it's kind of been stuck in our head. Is that totally accurate? Not really. But at least it's a guide for a lot of people. And I think that that's important. If you can get your 8-ounce glasses in per day, that's great. I like to look at it this way. Take your body weight, divide it in half. That's the number of ounces that you should be drinking a day. That's one little piece. And if you are really looking for good gut health and digestion, I recommend drinking 20 minutes before a meal and then 20 minutes after.
But no water during your meal, right?
No water during your meal, especially cold. Try to stay away from cold water before and after a meal. And again, the reason why we believe in that. And what research has shown is that our body is, an inferno. Our gut should be acidic. It should be have fire in our belly to be able to digest and to absorb the nutrients. And when we are putting in all that water, especially cold water, we're dousing the flame. We're dousing all of that really good acid that we need to be able to break down those nutrients. So that's another little tip.
So how can people find you? And we'll have these links in the show notes. But if people were like, oh my God, Jayne, I need to work with you, how do they find you?
They can go to JayneWilliamsWellness.com, and they can find all of my information on there. They can contact me through Jayne Williams Wellness. So that's a great place to find me. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook, so you can always reach me there as well. And I'd love to hear from you. And
will you come back and talk about fat?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. I want to hear all about that. But these have been so helpful. And I know that it's going to be so helpful for so many people. And I know back over the summer when I had gotten really sick, I remember you reached out to me and was like, we need to reset your gut. And I never did. But I'm here now.
Yes. We still need to talk about that. I do have a couple of ideas for you too.
Yes, and I would love to hear. And I love chatting with you. So thank you so much for coming on today. And I look forward to our next episode together.
Thank you for having me.
To continue your journey forward, find Jory Rose on Facebook and Instagram to become part of her growing community. You can also gain access to her meditations, books, online classes, or to sign up for an upcoming retreat. Visit her at joryrose.com. That's JOREEROSE.com.